Good morning. I believe we are live. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our latest webinar, a spotlight on security automation with the help of Red Hat. And this is off the back of some really good feedback from one of our previous webinars that we did a few months ago on Red Hat and Red Hat Automation with Ansible, where we dived into automating some of those operational tasks using playbooks. And the requests were really for a deeper dive into security automation. So for the next 20 minutes or so, maybe longer, we will be covering some of those aspects there. So welcome. My name is Daniel Fleetwood. I'm one of the business development managers here at Evolution Systems, and I'm delighted to introduce two guests today who are going to be sharing their knowledge and insights into the growing threat of cybercrime. But before I do that, I just wanted to say hi to everybody attending live and on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and our YouTube channels. Yes, we are live, and of course, one of the benefits there is that you can ask us a question at any point, and we'll try and fit them in at the end. Obviously, this will be made available afterwards from our website and on our YouTube channel. So, our guest today, let me introduce. We have Shane Baldwin, a specialist solution architect at Red Hat. Shane empowers organizations across ANZ to better manage risk across their hybrid cloud environments, as well as supporting and contributing to many security-focused open source projects across the region. Good morning, Shane.
Hi, Daniel.
Thank you for joining us. Also with us this morning, we have Louis DiCarlo, a business manager at Tech Data. Louis has over 20 years experience in the IT industry and is on the panel representing Tech Data today as Evolution's strategic distributor for Red Hat. Both Louis and Tech Data hold a wealth of experience with Red Hat, and it's well known for its Centre of Excellence. Good morning, Louis.
Good morning, and thank you for that. Thank you for this invite. Look, I think it's it's going to be really key and quite strategic that we are working together. So bringing us together in this forum is fantastic, and it really brings us to an environment that we need to be in, is working closely together, looking at business values, because there's quite a history that, yes, Evolution Systems and Tech Data and Red Hat have all worked closely together. Us working closer together fits and I'll just spend a minute on this, is a category we're calling partners of the future. And we see Evolution Systems being a partner of the future, where we're working and focusing on business values and really adapting that cloud native ecosystem and focusing on the security. So it's going to be an exciting event. So thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And we are open to creating strategic partnerships. Obviously, with Tech Data, we've been a partner with them for over 20 years, and we're working with Red Hat over the last 3 or 4 years as well. So today, I really want to focus on 5 areas. Number 1, the growing threat of cybercrime. We want to talk about some of the effective security strategies that we can put in place. We want to address some common challenges around risk management, talk about how you can strengthen your security posture with automation, and then really Red Hat's role in the approach to cybersecurity and how Evolution and Tech Data can work with Red Hat in helping customers really get their security posture and mitigate some of the risks that we know about that are coming around. So let's get into it. So the first topic is just around the growing threat of cybercrime. So look, we all know that cybercrime is on the rise, and I'll show some quite alarming stats shortly. Customers need strategies to help mitigate, be proactive, and really reinforce defences. We, of course, know about the Australian Cybersecurity Centre mandates on the Essential 8 strategies. So Shane, what else can you tell us about how Red Hat with Ansible can assist customers with these types of strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's been really interesting to see that rise in ransomware. So if you look at that period, 2020 to 2021, the ACSC released a cyber threat report covering that period. And one of the key statistics there was they observed 500 ransomware reports each month over that period. And that represented a 15% increase in ransomware attacks over the previous reporting period. Now, since then, we've kind of seen this change in tactics, techniques, and procedures from some of those threat actors, and particularly looking at targeting Linux and cloud systems So 2 years ago, we were still seeing some really rudimentary ransomware threats targeting those systems. Decryption tools that didn't necessarily work, even if you paid a ransom, hard-coded target names inside binaries. That was 2 years ago. Now, if we move forward to 2022, now we're starting to see ransomware as a service starting to target Linux systems, and ransomware as a service developers creating kits for affiliates to target those systems. So being able to create those automation strategies to mitigate the threat of ransomware is really important for organizations in 2022. You mentioned the Essential 8, and certainly a lot of those strategies are applicable for countering ransomware and other types of cybercrime, and particularly creating a hardened target against some of those threats. So things like just patching applications and operating systems and being able to pull through security updates quickly to prevent threat actors being able to exploit vulnerable applications. And also looking at being able to automate things like application control. How can you create trusted application state across a hybrid cloud environment, for example? It's really where security automation helps us implement those high priority cyber mitigation strategies across a security perimeter that extends from the cloud to on-premises infrastructure all the way out to the edge.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, thanks. I got to chime in at this point, and that's in this report when it quotes a 33 billion in self-reported losses, right? So it is costing businesses a massive amount of money to, tackle and really correct. So I can imagine it is very high on the radar to be going, how can they proactively start to, improve the way they report, and which is, cut that massive cost base out of an organization.
Exactly right. And that 33 billion is self-reported losses. I mean, it's probably even more. Before we move on to the next point around involving security strategies that involve everybody, obviously with human risk, humans can make mistakes. And with your webinar a few weeks ago, Shane, you spoke about how Red Hat and Ansible can actually minimize that human error with the operational risk, accelerate DevSecOps, and reduce operational costs at the same time. So it's really important. It's a very powerful tool, because we know that everybody, we can make mistakes, especially with all those manual tasks.
Exactly. And when you add that added pressure of trying to recover from a cybersecurity incident, for example, that's where it's really important to create those automated, consistent processes. And ransomware recovery is a really interesting use case there, where you're often trying to bring services back at the same time that incident is ongoing. So people are under enormous pressure, and that's where they can start to make mistakes. So being able to create those automated playbooks and those recovery responses is really important for organizations.
And that high cost, Shane, would you say it's attributed to the many touch points that cybercrime or that vulnerability has hit, and to correct those many touch points from server to cloud to platform is a high factor to that cost?
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, we've seen that security perimeter now extends from cloud right out to edge. So those costs, or those recovery costs, are also rising in response. Being able to support recovery across different systems, different teams, notification, escalation. That's really where it's important to start to extend automation out across all of those different parts of the organization.
Yeah, and then would it also involve the people across that organization, the developers, the infrastructure owners? So the spread is wide, as in people and technology. That's probably a good way to summarize that impact to an organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, great insights, guys. So number two, the on our topics is the effective security strategies that should involve everybody. So as we know, it's becoming harder and harder to find and hire good people, and there's definitely a skills shortage in the cybersecurity space. So this in itself is a risk, but even the best do make mistakes. As we said, humans make mistakes. So how can addressing the manual processes of applying patches and updating firewall rules and things like that help to mitigate risk and address those skills shortages as well? Shane, that's a question for you, I guess.
Yeah, and automation really helps us create that consistency so that I can simulate threats, for example, and be able to exercise responses and be able to codify some of that knowledge so that we can enable that automation across, like you said, different parts of the organization. And I think that's what we're starting to see now, is that move from, where we might traditionally associate automation with infrastructure and operations to now starting to automate security operations, starting to automate things like threat hunting, investigation enrichment, incident response, being able to extend automation across not only creating a hardened target with that infrastructure and operations security automation, but now extending that through to creating these automated security operations center practices and processes. And I think that's really where the value is for organizations, is extending automation across all of those different parts of the business.
Absolutely. And Louis, did you want to comment on this this stat here, which is, with no security automation, breaches are far higher than those with, on average, that do have some kind of deployed automation? It's an incredible stat. Obviously, when it's about mitigating, not completely eradicating. But
thanks. Yeah. When I see that statement, it lines up to some of my experience with some of the senior CISOs and security officers, that with automation in place, you can set a baseline in place, which is currently I'll go out and do a health check with my automated service. I know the current state of affairs. And then when something a vulnerability has occurred, or there's a hit in place or something down, you've got a baseline to go, I'll run that automation process again and check the current status. Or you may have an automation in place to roll back a version to implement. So it is about implementing before and to create a solid baseline.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to topic number 3. So talk about some of the common challenges of risk management. So we know keeping up with rapidly changing threats and, as well as educating customers and their employees around the risks and the general behavior and that lack of training there. What else can you tell us about these types of obstacles that, in the ever-changing security practices, Shane?
Look, I think a key or a key issue for organizations initially is just getting visibility of everything inside their organizations, being able to understand the risks for their environment. And like Louis says, what is that baseline? And is that being consistently applied throughout the organization? So being able to get that visibility of where are these vulnerabilities and how can we start to address those is certainly key for those organizations. And also looking at, we mentioned before those skills shortages. How can we start to codify some of that knowledge and make it available for different parts of the organization? How can we extend security automation outside of that traditional infrastructure ops team to support other parts of the organization? So I think that ability to share knowledge and understand the risk posture for the organization is certainly core to addressing some of these issues with risk management.
Absolutely. And it is, as well as keeping up with the rapidly changing threats, it is also a lot to do around training and actually educating your staff, the IT people, as well as having these types of things in place. Education, Louis, and training the staff is very important.
Yeah, thank you, Shane. When you quote visibility, I think of multi-vendor environments and trying to see the status of each vendor. And of course, we've got to add the topic in a multi-cloud environment, right? So, this may be a situation where there's a private cloud component and a public cloud. So we've got a true hybrid cloud environment, and to be able to reach across those domains and have that full visibility is quite key. And there is a way to implement it, as we know, and it's about really working with that greater environment.
And you mentioned earlier, Daniel, that keeping up with cybersecurity threats, and certainly I think that was another highlight of that ACSC annual cyber threat report. And the ACSC in that case observed threat actors being able to turn a vulnerability in an application into an exploit in a matter of hours. So being able to manage that risk really means being able to pull through those security updates that much faster for the organization. And I think really the only way that we can look at keeping up with that type of threat is through some of these automated practices and processes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to go back to what Lou was saying, whether it's private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud is the new norm. So having that Red Hat Ansible stack, that tool that can work across all of those clouds is really powerful. To have that automation across whichever cloud, whichever private cloud you might be using. And as we know, most people are using a variation of many different ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it extends not only across those hybrid cloud environments, but up and down the stack as well. For example, how can I validate S3 bucket encryption across my cloud environment? Or validate, do I have all those security controls and patches applied to my cloud systems? So really being able to support those same controls up and down the stack and across that hybrid cloud environment.
100%. 100%. That leads us into topic number 4. So how to strengthen your security posture with automation. So we've talked about the essential A and how that can help reduce and mitigate risk, but there still will be that human error factor. So how is Red Hat Automation helping to automate some of these, such as application control, patching, and the backup and restore processes?
Yeah, and I think the Essential 8 is probably a good place to start for that automation and creating that hardened target against some of these threats. We mentioned automating application control state and being able to do that using Ansible and native Linux application control, but also being able to, like we mentioned, automate system patching, which is now a really complex process inside many organizations. It might involve taking a backup of a system or scheduling a snapshot, being able to actually apply the patch, perform a system health check, testing and verification, and then roll back that host once that patching, if that patching doesn't succeed. So it's become a relatively complex process for organizations. And I think that's why we start to see vulnerable applications being exploited and that leading to access into those organizations. And it's highlighted there, that backup and restore. And how do we support some of those automated practices to catch errors in verification testing and be able to automatically roll back those systems? And being able to remove, like you mentioned, the inconsistencies from those processes and helping operators be able to apply those processes even if there is an active cybersecurity incident. They can start to roll back those services. They can do that in an automated way, and they can look at simulating and rehearsing some of that recovery.
Yeah, and can you tell us a bit about the Red Hat Insights and how that can provide visibility into the vulnerabilities and how that all hangs together with the automation?
Yeah, absolutely. So Insights is a managed service from Red Hat. It's included with every Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription. And like you mentioned, it provides that observability across hybrid cloud environments so that I can see where we are exposed to certain vulnerabilities. or where there is drift from a security baseline. Now, one of the other benefits of Insights is it integrates with Ansible automation. So, for example, being able to patch a vulnerability, I can allow Insights to create an Ansible playbook for me, and I can integrate that with a platform to execute that automation across our environment. So we can get visibility into where we're exposed, we can identify those risks, and then we can look at automating the mitigation and remediation of those risks across those different environments. And that's how we can start to support that automated process so that we can move faster than those threat actors that we looked at before, who are being able to turn a vulnerability into an exploit in a matter of hours.
Yeah, and that's really important, the playbooks and being able to have these tried and tested methods and know that they can just be rolled out and they work. And again, it comes back to that human error, trying and mitigating as much as possible that, so it can allow people to focus on, you know, looking at threat reports and things like that. So the playbooks and the whole with Ansible and everything like that is so important.
Yeah, and sometimes those playbooks might be involve a number of different steps to mitigate a threat. So while Red Hat is creating a patch for a vulnerability, for example, we'll provide a playbook through Insights that organizations can use to mitigate that. And that might involve a number of different steps needed to mitigate those threats. And in this case, it's provided as that supported playbook through Insights that you can use to automate throughout the organization.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. When you bring up the topic of, you know, patching, backups, we, you know, a lot of organizations are still running them as manual processes where teams are running them and they're taking weeks to execute. You know, I'll be kind and call it weeks, but you know, it's, you know, months. And yeah, for them, automation shouldn't be seen as a threat to, you know, take away that work, but it could quite easily, and it's got a great starting point to go, hey, how do you manually patch that platform, that environment or that instance, and convert that manual process? And this is the starting I've found that's been successful. Convert a paper script or a manual process to a playbook. And, you know, it takes that time to do that initial one. The initial one may take the longest period. It may take that understanding and setting it up, but then you know that you're following playbooks to adjust, tweak, are in a lot faster and shorter times, and then the real payback occurs. So, yeah, what we've been describing is to the threat and then the time it takes to rectify it. So, really want to bring that. We could go on quite a deep discussion about it, but yeah. Stop using that manual process, or combine a couple of vendors' processes together into one to get that seamless flow.
Absolutely, it really helps and it can help bring an overall managed service, which Evolution can provide as well, to help customers with that kind of thing and automate the whole process for them. So yeah, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, that managed service, thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, that is absolutely key. So where you're sitting, and you're reaching out into a customer's network with an automated process, that's gold, right? That's the
Absolutely.
Well, and there's no thumbs in there, you know, hitting the wrong button, that'd be me, you know, hitting the wrong, you know, wrong step, taking the wrong path. But gold to managed service and an Ansible automation play.
Yep, absolutely. So to bring it all together, you know, Red Hat's role in your cybersecurity approach. So with the Red Hat solution stack and assistance from Evolution Systems and Tech Data, we can help to build a future-ready cybersecurity practice managed with Ansible to really drive that automation, reduce the human risk to IT teams, and allows them to respond to threats by, you know, taking out these complex tasks. And really, the Red Hat Enterprise Linux solution stack is they talk about a practical 3-point approach to addressing these security challenges. So we're talking about mitigating, protect, and complying. So overall, just a really powerful way to help with your mitigation strategies around security and cyber threats. And yeah, just to get your final thoughts on that, Shane and Louis.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've highlighted some of those automated practices and processes today, being able to remove inconsistency, creating these repeatable processes to support automated patching, for example, or applying some of those Essential 8 strategies, but also being able to take that same automation approach to those other cybersecurity operations parts of the organization, looking at automating threat hunting or investigation enrichment, for example, and being able to create that consistent security automation strategy across the entire organization, from infrastructure and ops right through to security operations also. And that's really the benefit of a platform like Ansible, is being able to provide that common automation language and framework across those different parts of the organization, across the hybrid cloud, and across those different parts of the technology stack.
100%. Louis, any final thoughts before I wrap this up?
Yeah. On that approach, I suppose what the other way you could quickly look at it is an organization may want to retain their most critical skills. Okay, also an organization will say, hey, I'll use, and I suppose this is what we're proposing is, I'll use the Red Hat Ansible and we'll use it ourselves for the most mission critical components. But then what we'll do, and this is where this flexibility is quite powerful, then I'll use Evolution Systems to manage the business level of the other areas of our business and use your skills and business set. So it's a solution that you open a discussion is, what part do you want to manage yourself and what part do you want as a managed service? And it'll be a common tool across both organizations. Therefore, you get a wider spread and a common workforce. So I'll keep flipping back to the DevSecOps engineers, the developers, the infrastructure owners. They're spread across, and every one of them could use this tool, and then it becomes a decision which ones keep in-house, which ones you manage out.
Yeah, it gives them that flexibility, basically, doesn't it?
Yep.
To take on more and as and when they need to. But in the interim, getting those playbooks out, getting that automation, giving you peace of mind that you're doing what you can to mitigate those risks as you expand and grow out and potentially grow out your teams. So yeah, that's really great. So final thoughts as we wrap this up. We are 28 minutes in, so that's a good timing. So to everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's content and are now able to kind of make a more informed decision on how you can help to mitigate cybercrime, which is a real thing and is growing year by year, and really strengthen your security posture with Red Hat. And if your organization doesn't have an automation strategy in place that focuses on cybersecurity, or if you require any assistance in this area, please reach out to Evolution Systems, and with the help of Red Hat and Tech Data, we can really start to put together strategies that really work for your business. For those that registered, an ebook will be on its way with the information on the topics we've discussed today. And if you'd like to know a bit more, just contact us through our contact us page on our website. And look, really big thank you to Shane and Louis. It's been a valuable session, a quick fire one. We could go much deeper, I know.
Yeah.
But those sorts of conversations we can have on another day. So look, a big thank you to both of you and to our viewers. And yeah, look, thanks for joining us, and have a great day, and reach out if you need to.
Thank you very much for arranging today. This is fantastic.
Thank you for your time, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.